we've spent so much time as it relates to a process that begins 4 weeks from today. Did we mention it starts 4 weeks from today? When free agency begins 4 weeks from today. We focus so much on the quarterbacks. And, Chris, I know that that's a pet peeve of yours. The game is driven too much by quarterback focus. Let's focus on defensive free agents. And let's start with Chris Jones. I don't expect him to leave, right? Especially after the performance in the Super Bowl. They're not letting this guy get away. They'll tag him if they have to, and they're going to pay this guy what he deserves.
I would think so. I mean, first off, I thought still, don't know if we paid enough attention to that tweet Chris Jones sent out when he said, thanks to Kansas City fans, and whatever, I got love for y'all, whatever it was he sent out. That to me was a little weird. That showed me that maybe there's not a lot of talks for a long-term contract yet, because I do think that's got to be a real thing, right? I mean, I would think they're thinking about paying Mahomes this offseason and getting out in front of that. Chris Jones is going to be in the conversation for one of the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. I do. I think he's going to be able to command that type of contract. So ultimately, I don't know if they're going to get to that. I'm with you. I think the franchise tag is a very real possibility for him.
Yeah, and look, the bottom line is you want to get to the market to maximize your earnings. And even if they pay him a long-term contract that, takes up a nice chunk of cash and cap space, it's not going to be as much as he would get if he were on the open market. Could you believe if this guy, after the performance we saw in the Super Bowl, was headed to the open market?
Right.
It would be a record for a defensive player.
Right. I mean, it's going to be an Aaron Donald land, right? I mean, I know Aaron Donald signed the contract 2 years ago, but that's what I would expect. Am I crazy to think that? I mean, I would think that he is going to command a Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald type of contract. You with me there? Or am I in crazy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely, because look, both of those guys did not get paid on the open market. Aaron Donald was under contract with the Rams, and the Bears had to give up all that draft capital before they paid Khalil Mack. I said at the time they paid Khalil Mack, if they were able to get him on the open market without having to give up multiple first-round picks, they may have given him $30 million a year, right? So if Chris Jones had found a way to the open market, and the only way he could do it as a practical matter is to ride out the franchise tag year to year, and it's harder for a non-quarterback to do that because of the injury possibility for a defensive player. They're going to make him an offer that's going to be far more than he ever thought he was going to make in the NFL, but it's going to be significantly less than he would get on the open market. Shaq Barrett is the next guy we need to talk about. He was the PFT Defensive Player of the Year, led the league in sacks on a one-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He said not that long ago, Chris, that he's willing to take less to stay in Tampa because he's very cognizant of state income taxes. He doesn't want to play in California, where you got to give 13.3% to the government off the top of your earnings. So I think the Bucs are going to have a chance to keep him, but they may have to use the franchise tag on him before they even get to the point where they're working out a long-term deal.
Well, yeah, they might have to do that. I mean, first off, the Bucs have a ton of money in the salary cap, so they should be able to pay a guy like this. Shaq Barrett, I think, should be able to command big money, but because it's only it's a kind of a one-year unicorn year, right? I don't think he's going to be able to demand money like we just talked about, like a Chris Jones or some of the other top-tier pass rushers on the list. But it's unique of the guy like this flying under the radar as the NFL sack leader, and I would think this is the guy the Bucs would want. This is a guy that you can build around, and you talk about culture and a guy that's buying into everything they're doing. I think that fits, and I would imagine they find a way to keep him and sign him to a long-term deal and just figure out the right number going forward.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the Buccaneers, as Bruce Arians, the head coach of the team, has made clear in some of his recent conversations with the media, the idea that we have to keep our defense together.
Yeah.
It's not just about who the quarterback is going to be, and they're trying to make that defense better and better. The Seahawks made their defense better last year with Jadeveon Clowney. He was dominant at times. That Monday night game against the 49ers, that was arguably the best game of his career. Then he had that issue with the sports hernia that kind of derailed the rest of his season.
Right.
The Seahawks want to keep him, and the deal is set. He can't be tagged. He's going to be one of these high-end defensive players who hits the open market. What do we expect the demand to be for a guy who has been more potential than production for most of his career?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair to say. Now, again, that he's in the top of the list as far as F the play up type of player, right? And the production doesn't always match the disruption he causes. The thing with Clowney, and of course the Seahawks have great need for this.
Clowney?
Well,
Clowney?
The thing for Clowney, okay, is they need the position desperately. It's imperative imperative to the way they play football and their defensive scheme, right? It's the 49ers, Seattle Seahawks defensive scheme. Pass rushers are huge. Clowney's a huge talent, but injuries are a concern. Can you really sit there and go, I'm going to give $60 million guaranteed to Jadeveon Clowney? You know, there's knee issues, there's the hernia issues. He plays such a physical brand of football. So, you know, I think there's going to be great need for him, but I think where it's going to be weird is it's going to be a lot of, I think, short-term contract offers for him. I don't think anybody's just going to give him a huge pool of money and go, you're our guy for the next 5 years. I think he's a guy that's probably going to have to earn it every 2 or 3 years because of his injury history and the way he plays.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be a 1 or a 2 year thing. It's going to be what will happen if there are ever across-the-board guaranteed contracts in the NFL. And maybe that's not a bad thing for the players. There will be a lot more movement. There'll be shorter contracts if every deal is going to be fully guaranteed, and that may be what someone has to do with Jadeveon Clowney, or J-Clowney, as you just called him, in free agency in 2020. Yannick Ngakoue. Look, he's a guy who has been jostling for a contract with the Jaguars, another great pass rusher, franchise tag available for him as well, wants that deal. Imagine if these guys actually were all getting to the market. I think that Jones, Barrett, and likely Ngakoue are going to get tagged, but he's another guy that has proven that he can get it done. He's the guy who became for Jacksonville what Dante Fowler Jr. was supposed to be.
Yeah, right. Well, and, his stats, if you want to look at that and go off of that, right, and you talk about production and all of that stuff, they're better than DeMarcus Lawrence with the Dallas Cowboys, who signed a $100 million contract. So Yannick Ngakoue is going to be able to command that type of money. He's that type of player. This year is going to be unbelievable for this position in free agency. There is if
anybody gets to the market.
You're right. I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of teams with this positional need. There really is. And if Yannick Ngakoue could get to the market, he is going to crush it. I mean, gosh, the Tennessee Titans need it. The Indianapolis Colts, those are two teams in their own division. They play, they're going to want guys like Yannick Ngakoue. The Seattle Seahawks that we just talked about, they play the same scheme the Jacksonville Jaguars play. That Seattle scheme, they're going to be in demand. So, yeah, I don't know where it goes, and he's probably going to get franchised too. You're right. But, man, I'm just amazed about the names as far as the pass rusher quality and the teams that need pass rushers, and then a lot of them have money to make it happen. That's where it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and Yannick's going to be able to command big money if he gets there. You're right. That's why I don't like this. I'm sick of the franchise tag thing. Screw off franchise tag.
Every July we see football players complain about the money that basketball players we've never heard of get in NBA free agency.
Yeah, right.
I think the more appropriate complaint, and I think this is one of the things we've seen play out, when a guy who got franchise tagged sees somebody who is a lesser player hit the market and strike it rich.
Yeah.
And, we could see that. Like, how about an Eric Armstead? Like, the 49ers franchise tag a guy who had 9 sacks in 4 years combined.
Yeah.
10 sacks in a year where he had Nick Bosa and Dee Ford attracting attention. Are they going to think they can plug somebody else in that spot, or are they going to tag Eric Armstead? He could be the guy who gets to the market.
He could be.
Ngakoue and Barrett and Jones are looking at saying, what the hell? This guy has his lottery prize. Not that it's not an unearned lottery. These guys deserve everything they're getting, but the way the system's set up, you can have guys who are getting more than maybe they should in relation to better players who are held in place by the tag.
100%. I don't like the franchise tag. I don't. You talk about the draft being un-American. To me, the franchise tag is like as un-American as it gets. I mean, it's communist is what that is, all right? So that bothers me, and your point is very real. And, as far as the Eric Armstead thing, I don't know. Again, where the 49ers have some balancing to do with their balance sheet as far as money is concerned. And, yeah, I would think they'd want to franchise him to keep that defensive line together, but they got not a lot of money in the salary cap. They got to try to pay Jimmy Ward, who's one of the better safeties in all of football. Kyle Juszczyk, we know how important he is to that offense and that team. They got to pay him too. They traded away a second-round pick for Emmanuel Sanders. I have a hard time believing they'll just let him walk out the door quite yet. So that one is going to be interesting to me, and you're right. I think that's the one I first look at here to go, I think he will hit the open market because I think the 49ers have some other issues as far as their roster is concerned.
Look, my attitude on the franchise tag is somewhat complicated. I accept the fact that it's not going anywhere, but I agree with you. I don't like it. And the best evidence that the franchise tag is not a good thing for players.
The owners still want it.
They still want it.
Yeah.
But let me go back to the early 90s. The antitrust lawsuit filed by Reggie White and others that culminated in a settlement agreement that created real free agency, right? The franchise tag was part of it. But for the guys who put their names on the lawsuit, the franchise tag could never be used on them. That tells you that the franchise tag is not a good thing.
Right.
Or it would have been applicable to the guys who put their names on the lawsuit that sparked this whole free agency process. And it won't be true free agency until the ability to not arbitrarily, you're strategically holding a guy in place on a team who otherwise would hit the market and make a ton of money and stretch the rubber band for everyone else.
Yes, that's where it just absolutely drives me crazy. It does. And then also, the same thing. You've probably heard me say this before. I mean, what profession does this happen in? Hey, you're the best at your profession in the whole world, but we don't quite want to give you anything guaranteed or show you any, future or anything yet. We're going to make you roll the dice one more year to make sure you're still the best profession in the world at your job. And, if you mess up, well, man, that price is going to go way down, way down. Now, if you do really good, maybe you'll make a smidgen more. It's just BS. I don't know what else to say about it.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.